Chapter 10. Page 105. May 21st was a red-letter day in the life of Robert Gordon. Wheat, corn and cotton all advanced to the highest levels of the season. Robert had read reports in the paper that Charles A. Lindbergh had started on his loan flight from New York to Paris. He went down to the telegraph office in the afternoon to inquire if there was any news about the success of Lindbergh's flight. The operator said that nothing had come over the wire yet, but there had been a report that Lindbergh had passed over Ireland early that morning. Robert waited in the telegraph office until about 5 p.m. when a flash came over the wire that Lindbergh had landed in Paris. This fired Robert's enthusiasm, and he was very much excited. Right then and there decided that he was going to New York in the very near future and start to build an airplane according to his own plans. He went immediately to the home of Mr. Kenilworth and told him about his plans and desired to go to New York just as soon as possible. Mr. Kenilworth was also very enthusiastic about Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic, and told Robert that he contemplated going to New York to be there for the reception when Lindbergh returned, and that he wanted to visit Walter and see how he was getting along anyway. So Robert tendered his resignation to Mr. Kenilworth to take place on May 31, 1927. Mr. Kenilworth accepted the resignation with the understanding and promise from Robert that if anything went wrong or he should lose his money or meet with disappointments in New York, he would immediately return and assume his old position. Robert thanked him for his kindness and told him that B would feel free to call on him but that he felt he would never have to return to take up the position again. In view of his discoveries of the cycles in the Bible, he could make money in the market, but his object was not alone to make money for selfish purposes, but to use it to benefit others and for the protection of his country at the time of the coming Great War which would be fought in the air. On Sunday, May 22, Robert wrote to Marie. My dearest Marie, the past week has been a great one for us, and yesterday, the 21st, was the greatest day in history. Lindbergh, the lone aviator, crossed the Atlantic and landed safely in Paris. Wheat, corn and cotton went up and we made more money. Profits are piling up fast, and I will soon have plenty of money to build my airplane. I had a long talk with Mr. Kenilworth yesterday afternoon after we received the news of Lindbergh's flight, and resigned my position, to take place on May 31st. Expect to go to New York sometime in the early part of June, and of course I want to take you with me as my wife. With the profits we now have made in the market, there will be no trouble about us getting along all right in New York, and I am sure that I am going to make a lot more money. Cotton is going away up in the early part of June and wheat is going very high in the latter part of May and early June. I will sell out and take some of my profits so we can get started in good shape. We'll see you next Sunday and talk the matter over and plan the best way. Your love and faith has sustained me thus far and helped to make me the success that I am, and with that love, there is no height which I cannot reach. I love you more than ever. You are all and everything to me. Lovingly, Robert. During the week ending May 28, Robert watched the markets very closely because he figured that wheat and corn would be top around May 28 to June 1. He wanted to sell out and get the profits so that he could go to New York. Cotton advanced to the highest level that week, and on Saturday, July was up to $16.40. Robert had a profit of over $3,000 in his cotton. He sold out his July wheat on May 28 at $1.50 and sold the corn at $1.0350, making about $2,300 profit. This, together with his stock profits, gave him about $6,000. He sold out Marie's corn at $1.0350, making a profit of about $1,100 there. She also had a profit of about $1,200 on the cotton, which she was still holding because he believed it was going higher. Marie's profit now amounted to about $2,300. Robert was going to Sherman, Texas on Saturday afternoon, and Monday being Decoration Day, he would not return until Monday night. He had a talk with Mr. Kenilworth before leaving, and Mr. Kenilworth told him that he had been buying more corn on the way up and more cotton. That he now had a profit of about $25,000, all of which was due to Robert's advice. Robert said that he was going away to see Marie and confided that he was going to try to get her to elope with him and go to New York. Mr. Kenilworth told him that he could take the good news to Marie that he was going to give them a wedding present of $10,000, which was less than half of the profits he had made. He was going to continue to hold the cotton until Robert thought it was time to sell. On the afternoon of May 28, Robert boarded a train for Sherman, Texas, with the lightest heart that he had ever experienced in his life. Now that his dream was really going to be realized, he was never so happy. He figured that with the money he had made and with Marie's money, and the $10,000 which Mr. Kenilworth was going to give them, he would have about $18,000, which would give him capital to continue to speculate in the market and money for his plans on his great airplane. As the train rolled across the plains of Texas and Robert watched the sun setting across the prairies on that Saturday afternoon, he dreamed of the day when he, like Lindbergh, would cross the country in his great airplane. He could think of nothing else but Lindbergh's great flight and what it meant to the world. He realized that Ezekiel's prophecy of that war which was to come and be fought in the air, was coming true, and the great plane described by Ezekiel, the eagle with wheel within a wheel, would one day become a reality. He could now see the possibilities of his dream being fulfilled, and he was sure of success. Marie welcomed him with enthusiasm and open arms. She was so proud of him and so happy that he made good in the market. He had been so thoughtful to buy cotton and corn for her and sold out the corn with $1,100 profit. She told Robert that he was a wonder, that he was one of the greatest young men in the world and a genius, and that he would be a greater man than Lindbergh when he was as old as Lindbergh. Robert said that on June 9, he would be 21 years of age, and on that day he wanted to be married and start on his career as a real man. He wanted to go back to Texarkana after the holidays, wind up his affairs and get ready to go to New York. Wanted her to go with him, starting Saturday, June 4, so they would arrive on Sunday, June 5 in St. Louis, be married, and proceed immediately to New York. He asked Marie what she thought about going to her father, telling him he had now made good and had enough money to start out, and asked his consent to their marriage. Marie said that it was useless, that her father would never consent to her leaving school and being married, no matter how much money the man she was going to marry had to take care of her. Her father was bent on her finishing her education, and she knew it would be a hopeless case. There was no use talking about it. She asked Robert if he didn't think it would be better for her to remain in school for another year or two, to finish her education, and then she could join him in New York and be married. She thought it possible that he might get along better for a while without her. But Robert would not listen to this and told her that he would never go without her. His future happiness and success depended upon her love and encouragement. Her love had guided him safely thus far and would lead him on to greater things. He had dreamed of the time when he would come home at night from his work or study, to find her there and see her beautiful eyes, the lights that would guide him on to success. She could either make him the most miserable man in the world or the happiest. His entire future and fate were in her hands, and she could do with him as she willed. Marie agreed to keep her promise she had made to him long before, that regardless of money or conditions, she would leave father, mother, brothers and sisters, and go with him anywhere, even unto the ends of the earth, and that if he insisted, she would elope because she knew that was the only way, since her father would not give his consent. On Sunday, May 29, Robert and Marie went to Dallas, Texas. They had planned when they were ready to elope, that Marie would leave from Dallas on the Sunshine Special in the afternoon of June 4. She was to keep her plans absolutely secret, and Robert was to board the same train that night at Texarkana, and after the train was out of Texarkana, he was to find her, go on to St. Louis together, be married there on Sunday morning, and leave Sunday noon for New York. Robert was extremely happy and talked of nothing but the success that was to come to them, of his great plane that he was to build and the part it would take in protecting the country in the great air battle which he was sure was yet to come, when foreign countries through their jealousy, would attack the United States from the air and do great damage to this country. He told her that in the end Uncle Sam would win, that the stars and stripes would proudly float from the great buildings in New York, and that they would live to see that day, and he wanted her there with him when his great ship would help win the victory for his country. Walter Kenilworth was in the city, and they were going to work together on inventions and discoveries that would help win the war which he knew was sure to come. It was the most interesting and pleasant Sunday that they had ever spent together. They drove around Dallas and talked over their future plans. Sunday afternoon they returned to Sherman, and Monday forenoon Robert spent with Marie. They went out to the cemetery and placed some flowers upon the graves of soldiers who had lost their lives in defense of their country. Robert talked of the great feat of Lindbergh and of the honors that he would receive from the foreign countries, and told Marie what a great time they would have, as Mr. Kenilworth was going to New York and they would all be there at the great reception when Lindbergh returned. He said goodbye to her on Monday afternoon and started back for Texarkana, knowing that the next time he would meet her, would be on board the train for St. Louis, where she would become his wife. From that time on, Robert counted the minutes, in anticipation of the great happiness of the following Sunday when they would be married in St. Louis. He was strongly attracted to St. Louis because Lindbergh had left from there in the spirit of St. Louis, on his successful flight. He thought it would be good luck to marry in St. Louis and start from there to New York to spend their honeymoon. On Tuesday morning, May 31st, Robert started early to Mr. Kenilworth's office as that was to be his last day in the office and B was anxious to clean up all the business necessary and render Mr. Kenilworth all the service possible before he went away. He confided to Mr. Kenilworth the arrangements of eloping with Marie. Mr. Kenilworth told him that he would arrange to go to New York about the 11th of June and was sorry that he couldn't make the trip with Marie and Robert and see them married in St. Louis. But he said to Robert, "That is the time when two young people like to be alone, and I am afraid that I wouldn't be a very good chaperone on the trip. So it is all for the best and you will get along all right without me." Robert told Mr. Kenilworth that he figured according to his cycle theory, cotton should be sold out about June 1st or 2nd, that there would be a reaction. He had also figured that it was time to sell wheat and corn for a reaction. On June 1st, Robert sold out his July cotton at $16.80 and also sold out Marie's cotton. Robert's profits and capital together now amounted to $7,000. Robert sold 25,000 July wheat at $1.48 and 25,000 July corn at $1.06 on June 1st. He went down to the broker's office to watch the market for that week, because he knew the next few days would be very important and anxious days for him. He was thinking every minute of the day when he would start to New York and would make Marie his wife. This would be the greatest start of all his life, as he was starting it under favorable conditions and with plenty of money. He knew that success was certain and was never more hopeful. On Saturday, June 4th, he closed his short contract in July wheat at $1.43 and his corn contract at $1.02. He had made a profit of over $2,000 on wheat, which brought his capital up to $9,000. Mr. Kenilworth had taken Robert's advice and gone short of wheat and corn on June 1st, after selling out his cotton. Cotton declined from June 1st as Robert figured it would. He told Mr. Kenilworth on Saturday morning that he was going to buy in his wheat and corn, because he was getting ready to go away that afternoon and was not going to make any more trades until he had arrived in New York. He would have everything in cash and ready to make a new start after the honeymoon. Mr. Kenilworth had sold wheat and corn heavily and had made over $50,000 since he started to follow Robert's advice. He made back all the money he had lost in the slump in oil stocks in 1919 and was very grateful to Robert. He handed Robert New York exchange for $10,000 as a wedding present. Told him that he could call on him for any additional help that he wanted in financing the building of his airplane or for any other purpose. Robert assured him that he would not need any more help, that he could make all the money he wanted and that his success was assured. Robert told Mr. Kenilworth that he made over $4,000 for Marie on her little capital of $400 with which she had started. Mr. Kenilworth was very much elated over this. This was the first time he had heard about Marie putting up $400 to buy cotton. He told Robert she was the kind of a woman to marry, the one who believed in him and would back him with her money and everything else. He believed it was love of the right kind, that success was sure to follow. Robert was so happy that afternoon that he called Marie on the long-distance phone, and told her of his great success in the market in wheat and the money Mr. Kenilworth had made. Told her that they had now a working capital of around $25,000 and with that much money, in New York it would be only a question of a few years when he would be a millionaire. The main thing, however, was not money but the use he wanted to put it to in completing his invention. Marie was very happy and told him that she was making arrangements to go to Dallas and would leave there that afternoon on the Sunshine Special, and after the train pulled out of Texarkana, He would find her on board. He was to keep everything quiet and not let anybody know anything about the elopement, as her father might try to stop her. No one in Texarkana but Robert's mother and Mr. Kenilworth knew about the secret elopement. Robert kept everything quiet about his resigning from Mr. Kenilworth's and going to New York, because he thought that there might be some leak somewhere and that Mr. Stanton might find out about Marie's elopement and stop it.